52s and YouTube too. It all adds up. The Cretan Show, weeknights at 8 on RTE Radio 1.
Tweet at Today SOR. You're welcome back to the programme. Now, Muslims gathered in Dublin last weekend to protest against extremism and to reject militants who carried out brutal attacks on countries as far apart as Tunisia and Turkey recently. Many thousands of young people have been attracted to join the so-called Islamic State, who enforce their rule in Syria and Iraq by beheading, rape and torture. But according to my next guest, Shaykh Umar from the Irish Muslim Peace and Integration Council, we in Ireland should be concerned because young Muslims are in danger of being radicalised if extremism is not adequately challenged. Well, Shaykh Umar, thank you very much indeed for coming into studio this morning.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
You were very involved in the march last Saturday. Or last weekend. Can you tell me what were your aims in setting up that march?
Well, first of all, our aim was to try to change the vast majority of Muslims has been silent too long on the atrocities committed in the name of their religion, in the name of Islam. So, first of all, we aimed to try to give that large majority of the Muslims that has been silent so long, to make them vocal, to try to get them to become vocal. And this was just the beginning. At the same time, it was to reach out to the wider community, to let them understand that Islam is not about violence, is not about terrorism, is not about extremism. In fact, Islam condemns, like all other religions, terrorism and violence. And that message that we had was has been accepted by a lot of people, and that is testimony to the fact that we have received a lot of replies on our Facebook page, on our website, the comments that we have there from non-Muslims telling us that they're really thankful. And when we condemned terrorism Sunday and we did the No, Not in Our Name protest, they kind of understood and they kind of felt very relieved that, Muslims are standing against terrorism. Now, Muslims have been speaking against terrorism. Muslim leadership have been very vocal. However, the vast majority of the Muslims in Ireland have been too silent. There has been instances of certain Muslim leaders denying that there is anything like extremism. While the fact is that in Ireland we have about 50,000 Muslims, and up to 100 individuals, they are silent supporters or sympathizers of ISIS. These people have not been challenged, have not been isolated. And
you said so 100 supporters, you would
yes,
say, so 100
supporters.
Extremists.
Well, you see, when we say extremists, it does not necessarily mean violent extremists, but non-violent extremism also. But I think even if someone
extremist in their thinking, at least, whether or not they're active.
Even if someone is extremist in their ideology, I believe that as Muslims, we must challenge them. We must stand against them. And this is also why the Irish Muslim Peace and Integration Council has launched on Sunday the Declaration of Peace and the Guide to Prevent Radicalisation. That the Muslim community in Ireland is very young compared to the UK, for example. In the UK, we have had hundreds of youngsters leaving the borders of the UK to join ISIS. We don't want to end up like the epidemic of extremism that they have in the UK here in Ireland.
Can I just hold you there for a moment, Shaykh Umar? Just to go back to your estimate of there being 100 supporters of ISIS living here in Ireland. Where do you get that figure from, or why do you believe there to be 100?
That figure is because we have... I've been working in this community for 10 years. I am very much involved with the Muslim community. I am a sheikh, I'm a Muslim theologian who knows the community very well. And when I say 100, it's not, nobody should be now suddenly worried, because these 100 people haven't done anything yet, and we are sure they will not. They are non-violent extremists.
No, fair enough, but
yes.
But why do you think it's 100? Have you met these people?
Yes, absolutely. I have met them. I have met some people. Our members of the council have met them. When we were distributing the flyers, the members of the council in certain mosques, in one particular mosque there had been 5 incidents, and in one of the incidents our member has been physically assaulted by another Muslim who was against the protest.
Really?
Yes.
So one Muslim in support of the peace process was assaulted by one
Absolutely.
opposed to it. And where was that mosque?
It is a mosque in Dublin. We have raised the issue within the community, and we have sent an email to that mosque, and hopefully we'll get a reply. And one of the things, one of the things the mosque it's the same mosque that did not allow our poster to be put on their notice board. The poster against the poster of the protest against ISIS, while the same mosque has in the past many posters on their notice board of protests against America, against Israel, etc. But they did not allow us to put the posters. Now the mosque is silent. The mosque has not been speaking about extremism and has not been condemning within the congregation extremism, and is not allowing protests to be advertised in the mosque. And from the same mosque we have an experience where a member of our council has been physically assaulted by someone who worshipped there. Now what does it tell us? Well, it tells us that because certain organizations are silent, are not condemning ISIS and not vocal about them, they are leaving space for ambiguity. They are keeping certain Muslim members in ambiguity that are unsure what is the Islamic position. And one of the challenges we are having as Muslims is that there are a lot of Muslims out there that are really ignorant about the teachings of the Quran. The Quran clearly says, if you kill one person, it is like you have killed the whole of humanity. If you save one person, it is like you have saved all of humanity. This is the type of message that needs to be told. And we need to, as Muslim leaders, condemn terrorism openly, publicly, within the Muslim congregations, on the Friday prayers. And if that is not done, and if we only talk about the oppression within the Muslim countries, it kind of leaves space for the extremists to recruit many vulnerable Muslims.
Can I ask you, I mean, if you've identified that there are about 100 people who you would think to be extremist in their thinking here, and you have identified one particular mosque, I mean, obviously that mosque is not here to defend itself, so we won't name it this morning, but do you know, have people left Ireland to fight for ISIS? Are you aware of this?
I have heard about it from members of the Muslim community. I have read about it in the media as well. I have met a year ago one particular teenager who came to me and said, Sheikh, I'd like to go to Iraq and I'd like to fight for Islam. And I asked him, well, what do you mean fight for Islam? Well, he said, well, the ISIS, the Islamic State. And I knew that this young, vulnerable teenager doesn't have a clue about Islam, doesn't have a clue. His worldview is very limited. And because he has heard the Islamic State and the name Islam is associated to these extremists, this is why he assumes it is an Islamic State.
What age was this young man?
He was approximately 21, I think.
21. And had he been born and raised here in Ireland?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Gone to school in the Irish and still was looking at what was happening in Iraq?
Well, we have to question why. I think, first of all, the Muslim leadership does not engage with the Muslim youth. The imams, many of them do not speak English, do not engage with the youth. Number two, I think the media has an important responsibility here as well. When the media mentions these atrocities that are committed in the name of Islam, they often use the words that are very provocative, like Islamic terrorism. Well, there is no such thing as Islamic terrorism. Terrorism is terrorism. Terrorism has no religion. If some Christian commits an act of terrorism in the name of Christianity, we wouldn't call it Christian terrorism. It's just terrorism.
The term jihad?
Well, jihad itself is not what people assume it is. The perception of jihad is that jihad is a war against non-Muslims. It is a violent. Jihad is in fact a very noble concept, and I launched a website in January this year on jihad, jihad.ie, where viewers can go and they can find out about the real concept of jihad. Unfortunately, with many things in Islam, the teachings of Islam, particularly jihad, is it's a message that has been distorted and has been hijacked by the extremists. And again, the media has a responsibility, I think, there, that when they mention these atrocities committed in the name of Islam, they should not refer to these as Islamic terrorists. At the same time, I
suppose it's the terrorists themselves, or
terrorists themselves. Well, yes, but we
Islamic
should not give them. We should not acknowledge it. You see.
And can I ask you, bring you back for a moment to that young man, the 21-year-old? Did he go?
No, he didn't. No, I had a conversation with him for about 1 hour, and he came again after a few days. And at the end, he was absolutely satisfied, and he said that, Sheikh, now I understand. It's absolutely not an Islamic State. These are Khawarij. These are people that have nothing to do with Islam. But about a few months before that, I had met another person who was, I think, about in his 30s, and he wanted to go as well. Now, I haven't spoken to him after that, so I don't know whether he left or not.
He went or not.
No, I don't know.
Are you aware of anyone having come back? I mean, that's a problem that's been highlighted around Europe.
No.
Is the fact that people go out come back and bring their
extremist ideology here.
with
Absolutely.
them. And indeed the tactics, the terror tactics they have learned.
Well, absolutely. Well, this is also why we have launched the guide to prevent radicalisation.
But you're not aware of that, of anyone?
No, I'm not aware of any individual, no.
Okay, but so you've launched this guide?
Yes, absolutely. And the guide is to ensure that our Muslim community and our country, Ireland, does not face the same epidemic that the UK is facing at the moment, where we have youngsters, as I said, leaving the borders of the UK, joining these extremist militant groups. We in Ireland are living, and the majority of the Muslims in Ireland are, as many listeners can have experience with their interaction with Muslims, are very friendly, are peaceful people, normal people, who are not violent at all, not extremist at all. But if we as a Muslim community do not take responsibility and do not isolate those that are sympathizers of ISIS, those that are silent supporters of ISIS, and we allow them to come to the mosques, we allow them to speak to the vulnerable youth, what will happen is we are keep leaving space open for them to recruit and to brainwash our vulnerable Muslim youth here.
And you would see that it's the Muslim community yourselves that has this role to step up.
Absolutely. It's our responsibility.
And can I ask you finally, do you believe it is a real threat in Ireland that people, I mean, the Department of Justice has said that people have left Ireland to go and fight for Islamic State. Is this a real threat to Ireland?
At this moment, no. No. At this moment, no. There is a very, very minimum threat. However, the reason why we have launched this guide to prevent radicalisation is because after 10 years or 15 years, the Muslim population is growing rapidly. We want to ensure that we do not have the problems of extremism in the name of our religion that in other countries we are facing in Europe. So we would just want to ensure that, and that is why at the moment there is a very minimum threat. Having said that, at the same time we must, as a Muslim community, have that responsibility, take that responsibility, and work for more peace and work for ensuring that there is no extremism, in Ireland in the name of our religion at least.
Okay, well, Shaykh Umar, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Today with Sean O'Rourke on RTE Radio 1.